What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical average American here today to react and learn about the 10 most evil British people of all time. I think that every country must have its own infamous individuals throughout history, and today I want to learn exactly who the most evil, horrible Brits of all time are, and exactly what they did to earn such a reputation, you know? So fair warning, this video may have some, like, disturbing content. I'm not exactly sure, but the video is literally the 10 most evil British people of all time, so it's probably gonna be a bit disturbing. And with that being said, let's take a look.
John Reginald Christie, 10 Rillington Place.
Oh.
This was the address of British serial killer John Reginald Christie.
Oh, that's the direction we're going. Okay, I should have expected this, actually. This is a British serial killer. That would certainly, like, qualify for making you one of the worst British humans of all time. Serial killer. I'm not sure how famous he is. What is his name? John Reginald Christie? Yeah, I've never heard of him before. He must be, like, infamous in Britain. I wonder exactly what he did, though.
It was also the place where Christie committed some truly heinous crimes. The depths of Christie's evil not only has to do with 8 known victims, but also the fact that he initially led an innocent man to take the fall for his actions.
What? No way. That makes this a unique story, doesn't it? He killed at least 8 people. That's absolutely horrible. But it sounds like at some point he must have been captured and found guilty for them to even know these details in this story. He somehow got someone else to take the blame for what he did? Really? That's actually fascinating.
Christie allowed Timothy Evans to be hanged for the murder of his own wife and daughter, a crime that was perpetuated at 10 Rillington Place. Furthermore, the deplorable details of Christie's methodology and behavior during his crimes makes him one of Britain's most unique and uniquely evil people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Pure evil is the only way to describe someone like this. And it sounds like he murdered someone's wife and then had the husband. The husband was tried and found guilty and hanged and killed in his place. He was executed instead of this guy. That, I mean, it's already, like, beyond horrible what he did, but that's also, like, just an extra level of horrific, you know?
Amelia Dyer. Who can kill a child? A monster, quite frankly, and this...
Oh my god, okay. I was absolutely correct when I thought that this video was gonna be pretty disturbing. I didn't exactly know going into this, like, oh, the 10 most evil British people. Who would those be? It's starting to quickly make a lot of sense to me. This is mostly, like, serial killers and people who have murdered other people. This woman murdered a child. So it is really, really disturbing to think about, but I guess you have to admit it definitely fulfills the qualifications for this video. Literally the most evil British people.
This moniker certainly applies to one Amelia Dyer. Dyer was notorious during the days of Victorian London for her adoption and elimination of unwanted infants.
What? This isn't even funny. This is just disgusting. This is, like, from a while back. This is a little further back in history. She adopted infants? She killed and murdered infants? How is this, like, not number 1 on the list? It's hard to imagine, like, more evil than this. How bad is this top 10 list gonna get? This is just the second person.
It's unclear at which point Dyer's initially honest care of children went sour, but at some point, neglect turned into abuse and finally, murder. Dyer herself was eventually caught and hanged in 1896,
Good.
but not before the crimes attributed to her began to climb up to an alarming number. Today,
Oh my god. Oh well, they're gonna say how many children? Oh my god, this is sick, honestly. So she was someone who took care of children, and for at least in the beginning, that was her job, and she did that, and slowly she neglected the children, and then murdered and mistreated children. But she was caught and hanged, and I mean that's all well and good, but there obviously is never going to be any real justice for those children whose lives were lost. That's just sad. That's just really sad.
it's estimated that perhaps as many as 400 children lost their lives due to Amelia Dyer's wretched acts and shocking behavior.
What? What? Huh? I don't know how to process that. That doesn't even make sense. Like, 400? 400 children died under her. Okay, let's keep going. Like, I don't. What can you even say about that? I'm really genuinely shocked about this story. I've never heard of either of these British people before. These must be really famous like cases and infamous people in British culture. I've never heard of these people actually, so it's interesting to learn about, but it's really this disturbing.
Peter Sutcliffe. Peter Sutcliffe was dubbed the Yorkshire Ripper, a prolific British serial killer who terrorized areas of both Manchester and West Yorkshire during the mid to late 1970s.
Oh my god. What a nickname too. The Ripper. Wasn't there a Jack the Ripper? Wait a minute. What's his name?
The Yorkshire Ripper.
The Yorkshire Ripper. Isn't there a Jack the Ripper? Was he British? I don't know. Anyway, I guess, like, is this entire list just gonna be, like, British serial killers? Is that the route we're going down now?
Yorkshire during the mid to late 1970s. Sutcliffe targeted women and young girls, including, but not limited to, those working in the sex trade. A diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia alleged that Sutcliffe heard voices that led him to commit his crimes. These attacks were extremely violent in nature, and Sutcliffe's reputation grew as one of Britain's most well-known and feared serial offenders.
Oh my god. Yeah, like, don't get me wrong. Like, there's obviously famous American serial killers. Like I was saying at the beginning of this whole video, I think every country has its own infamous people, serial killers that have, like, gone down in history. They've started making, like, Netflix series about, like, a lot of these serial killers and stuff. I guess as an American, I've never learned about, British serial killers before. So these are totally new stories to me, and really quite disturbing.
He was sentenced to life imprisonment with 20 concurrent sentences, eventually dying in custody on November 13th, 2020.
That's good.
Oliver Cromwell. They say that history is written.
Oliver Cromwell. That name sounds familiar to me. Oliver Cromwell. I've heard that name before. I don't know where or why. And I never associated that name with, like, evil. I don't even remember what I thought of that name or where I learned it. Is he very famous? Because I've heard this name.
Written by the victors, but that doesn't change the fact that Britain's former Lord Protector, Oliver Cromwell, is an extremely divisive historical figure. It's Cromwell's desire to acquire and retain power that remains one of this statesman's most defining characteristics.
He wanted power. A statesman, British statesman, who wanted power. Is this finally, like, not a mass murderer? Like, finally not a serial killer that we're talking about? That's a good change of pace. Because I guess there's different types of evil. And I was wondering where they were going to go and touch on in this top 10 list.
It also means many different things to many different people, with those who signal out Cromwell's wartime brutality as just one of the reasons to claim that this man was pure evil. The Irish campaign of 1649 was particularly bloody, with the sieges of Drogheda and Wexford attributing massacres and war crimes to Cromwell's troops.
Oh, interesting. So he was like a military strategist He was in power during a time of war in Britain, and the manner in which he conducted war was questionable. And they're talking about war crimes and probably treatments of the enemy, maybe surrendered enemy soldiers, that kind of thing. Yes, this is certainly a unique brand of evil.
Hero to some, tyrant to others, Oliver Cromwell's legacy remains controversial to this day.
Interesting.
Edric Streona. What fate best befalls a traitor? If you
Edric Streona. I've never heard this name before. Edric Streona. They said something about him being a traitor?
If you answered with execution, then perhaps the fatal end of one Edric Streona remains justified. This is due to the fact that Streona, once a chief counsellor to King Ethelred II, betrayed England to the invading Danish forces of King Canute in 1015.
Oh, is he a famous British traitor? Like Benedict Arnold? That's like the famous traitor for Americans. He was famous for betraying England to the Danish, did they say?
Betrayed England to the invading Danish forces of King Canute in 1015.
Okay.
This wasn't the only moment of infamy in Edric's life, as he was also involved with the assassinations of noblemen while in service to the crown. By all accounts, this
is a very interesting story. I've never heard of him before. He was just an all-around questionable dude, huh? And I guess, depending on where your loyalty lied, you either really loved him or hated him, because he betrayed England to the Danish, who probably really liked him, and he assassinated noblemen? Was this also like English noblemen? He was just a full-on like English traitor then, huh?
was a man forever looking out for his best interests, angles by which Edric would come out on top. His gamble with Denmark proved to be his undoing, however, as he was ultimately ordered executed by Canute sometime around the winter of 1017.
Wait. He was... Right, so he was a full traitor to his country and working for the Danish, and then that didn't end up working out? Are they saying that the Danish then executed him? Even after all that? Is that true? Am I understanding this correctly? The country he betrayed England for then executed him at the end. That's definitely evil. This is an interesting story. Sort of an embarrassing story for him. Like, you give up everything you stand for and betray your own people, and then you just get double-crossed in the end and executed anyway by the people you betrayed your people to work for. That's just, man, probably exactly what he deserved then, huh? And a bit ironic.
Thomas Becket. Thomas Becket is a British historical figure similar to Cromwell, in that his reputation remains divisive. The former Archbishop of Canterbury is known as a Catholic saint in the modern day, but this...
Thomas Becket. That name also sounds a little familiar. Thomas Becket? What was that title they gave of Canterbury?
Is a British historical figure similar to Cromwell, in that his reputation remains divisive. The former Archbishop of Canterbury...
Archbishop of Canterbury. I've heard that title before. I forget what that means. I've heard that before. This is kind of nice. Like, the first two British people on this evil list really had me, like, worried. A little worked up, even, because we were just talking about serial killers, which is, interesting and disturbing in its own way. Now we're kind of, like, branching out to all sorts of evil British people throughout history. So I'm kind of enjoying the way this list is, like, kind of spreading out and diversifying who it's covering. Not just British serial killers, my God, thank goodness.
is known as a Catholic saint in the modern day, but this doesn't change any of Becket's actions while he was alive. The man's fancy and extravagant lifestyle while serving under King Henry II brought with him accusations of embezzlement, although these were never authenticated. This relationship soon became adversarial, as Becket played the church against the state, dividing all of England in the process.
So he did something really, really big in British history. Like, this guy is an important figure in British history. He created a divide between the church and governments, basically? Is that what they're saying?
As Becket played the church against the state, dividing all of England in the process.
He divided all of England in the process of doing this. That's a very unique evil, sort of like a political manipulation kind of evil. Interesting.
Thomas Becket was assassinated by British knights, allegedly on the orders of King Henry, in June of 1170.
Oh, I guess that's what happens when you betray the British state hundreds of years ago. When it's more likely that anything kind of goes, and the chances that you just straight up get assassinated by the king or the king's knights. The fact that that's a possibility, you probably got to be a little more careful back in the day when that's a possibility, huh? And that's what happened.
So was Becket a power-hungry clergyman or a pious martyr? You be the judge.
I don't know.
King John. Heavy is the head that wears the crown is a quote often attributed to William Shakespeare and Henry IV. However, at what point do the pressures of rule make up for a leader's apparent reputation for cruelty? This is
interesting. A reputation for cruelty. This is interesting. We're covering a lot of like politicians now, or kings and rulers in British history. Interesting. It's really unfortunate that people in such positions of power ended up being evil, and this king was known for cruelty, which is probably not what you are looking for in your king.
This is, in part, why the legacy of John, King of England, remains controversial. He's alleged to have taken the throne by subterfuge and murder, with the death of Arthur of Brittany, although this is unconfirmed.
What?
The wars fought under his reign were bloody and often unsuccessful, while citizens were also said to have been burdened with excessive taxation under King John.
So he was just a bad king. It's questionable how he even became king. He might have killed the king and become king, they're not sure. And then he was bad at waging war, lost all his battles, and taxed the people even more so than they were used to or happy with. He was just like a bad ruler then, huh? But was he also like cruel on top of it?
He was excommunicated by the Pope, and he broke the Magna Carta peace agreement not long after it was established.
Oh my God.
In other words, he was a great king.
Yeah.
Oswald Mosley. It's difficult to believe that the future fascist Oswald Mosley at one point was very close to becoming Britain's Prime Minister.
What? Who is this? What? Almost the Prime Minister. I don't know if this is the American in me or what, if I don't know my history. I've never heard of Oswald Mosley. Fascist, almost became Prime Minister, okay.
Mosley challenged Neville Chamberlain in 1924, before eventually forming what would later become the British Union of Fascists as the New Party in 1930. His economic policies arrived armed with heavy anti-Semitic rhetoric, and his...
Oh my God, okay, so this was a pretty bad person. Is that Hitler? Is he shaking hands with Hitler there? That's a bad sign. It's a very bad sign. He was on Time magazine, though, somehow.
And his second...
Wait. If you look at the magazine, hold on. If on this magazine at the bottom, under his picture, it says Britain's Hitler. Britain's Hitler? I've never heard of him before. I'm very interested. Sounds like with a nickname like that. Like, come on. This sounds quite bad.
And his second wedding was attended by Nazi leaders Adolf Hitler and Joseph Goebbels.
No.
Mosley was also associated with Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, particularly while visiting the country in the late 1930s.
Really?
All of this and more contribute to Oswald Mosley's reputation as one of the most infamously key figures of far-right political activism within 20th century Britain.
Oh my! Imagine if he had become Prime Minister. With those types of connections, what kind of radically different, future might have happened for Britain? Oh my God.
Hugh Despenser the Younger.
Hugh Despenser the Younger. We're starting to get to the end of this video here. Starting to wrap it up. This is Hugh Despenser the Younger. What does that mean? Is that like some kind of title? I've never heard of him before. Okay.
It seemed as if no land was enough for Hugh Despenser the Younger. This British
Okay.
nobleman seized property by any means necessary, accumulating Welsh lands with zeal and fury. However,
A lot of these stories are about British individuals who just had like a huge lust for power. What's up with that?
the court barons of King Edward II soon became wary of Despenser's influence with the king and sought to kill him. Edward and the Despenser family soon became exiles, after a successful invasion was plotted by Edward's wife, Queen Isabella. Edward III ascended the throne, Hugh Despenser was put on trial, and the latter was violently executed as a traitor in 1326.
Oh my god, that's kind of a recurring theme here as well. If you do the wrong thing back in the day in Britain, there was a decent probability you were gonna get like tried and executed publicly or something.
Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper. Okay. I was way too excited for Jack the Ripper there. I'm sorry. That is not good. But I was just saying earlier in the video, there was, what were they saying? Like the Yorkshire Ripper or something like that. And I was like, what about Jack the Ripper? I've heard of this name before. I think most Americans at least know this name, but I don't really know the story of Jack the Ripper. I wasn't even really sure if he was British or not. So I'm actually kind of glad he's on this list. I'm actually interested to hear this story. I think he must be the most famous evil British person, because even I have heard of him before as an American.
Although the identity of the man behind the Whitechapel murders remains a mystery, Jack the Ripper's reputation as Britain's most evil man remains secure.
Oh, is he number one? Is he number one on the list? What do you mean? They never confirmed his identity? They never caught him? Or what?
The calling cards of Jack's Victorian-era crimes were many, with some investigators and historians claiming that the Ripper must have possessed some form of surgical knowledge. Meanwhile, the taunting letters sent to the police paint a picture of a deranged yet callously coordinated killer.
He sent letters to the police? He was a cold, calculated killer with surgical precision who sent like taunting letters to the police to make fun of them and be like, haha, I'm sending you letters, you can't even catch me. That is intriguing, but of course horrible.
One who was perversely proud of his work. The brutality of the crimes and the evidence found at the Ripper's crime scenes continue to fascinate true crime scholars to this day, while Jack's eternal evil continues to haunt our British history.
Did they never find him? How did it end? They didn't really go into detail much there. I'm really quite curious about that. So Jack the Ripper is very famous in British culture. I've heard of him. He's somewhat famous in American culture. Like most Americans have heard of him. I just didn't know his story really. And that didn't go into too much detail, but that's okay. Kind of a cliffhanger there for me.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other
Okay, and I think that's the end right there. That was something. That was something. That was by Watch Mojo UK, and I gotta give this video a like. I'm not gonna say that I loved this video. I enjoyed the information. I enjoyed learning, but some of these stories here today were just downright disgusting. But again, all parts of British history that I really have never heard of before. For these to be the most famous evil British people, I'm surprised. I really didn't know much of any of them, really. I hadn't really heard of any of them. But that made it quite, I don't know, fascinating for me to learn about. But also, disturbing, as I expected. So I got something out of this. And hopefully I can fall asleep tonight, with all this information now I have. But I did enjoy this. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on any of these evil British people or their stories or any other evil British people who maybe should have been on this list but weren't. That'd be very interesting to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Britain and British culture and learning things about Britain for the first time, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.